Hello and welcome to the Football League World TV weekend preview. My name's Ned Holmes and I'm joined by my colleagues Marcus and Adam. Marcus, how are you doing today, mate?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Feeling the anticipation ahead of the Friday night action. Of course, some exciting fixtures tomorrow. So yeah, looking forward to previewing those fixtures alongside you both.
And what about you, Adam?
Yeah, same sentiments really. I mean, I need to give a shout out to this glass behind me because it's keeping me up and it's making sure that I don't have to use my hands. So shout out to the glass, and yeah, I'm looking forward to getting stuck into these fixtures.
Absolutely. Well, good to know that you're well set up because we've got a lot of EFL action to sort of get our teeth into. But before we do that, I just wanted to sort of remind everyone to subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you haven't already, and give us a like and share on Facebook and on Twitter. But without any further ado, we'll get started. We start then with Stoke versus West Brom. Tonight's fixture looks set to be a big game, really. Marcus, I'll come to you first. Is this a proper test of both teams' automatic promotion credentials?
Definitely. I think we saw West Brom pass a few tests with flying colours early on in the season. Played that enthralling opening match, 2-2 draw at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth, and then, of course, hammered Sheffield United 4-0 at home, which at the time we maybe thought was more of an automatic promotion direct rival than it has materialised to be. But Stoke will be a really difficult test. They've been really strong at home this season. Got a tricky, fluid front three of Mario Vrancic, Jacob Brown and Nick Powell. Of course, will be something different, a little bit different for the Baggies back line to contend with. So yeah, I completely agree with you. It's a nice matchup for us to sort of assess our estimations of both teams. And yeah, I'm sure it'll be a cracking bit of Friday night entertainment.
Absolutely. It was obviously a sort of heavy win for West Brom in the week, but Marcus, that Stoke sort of back three has been so impressive through the first month of the season. Do you think, amongst all the sort of teams in the Championship, Stoke are as ideally equipped as you could be, really, for that unique attack that the Baggies are going to bring?
Yeah, I think looking at the way Harry Souttar's developed in the last few years, he's a real leader in the centre of that back three. And then bringing in Leo Ostergaard, of course, on loan from Brighton, and the height he brings to that back line particularly could pay dividends in set pieces and the dangerous long throw, the aerial bombardment that at times West Brom can fall to, maybe particularly away from home. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they deal with that. I hadn't really looked at it as Stoke being ideally set up more than any other team, but their height and that strong defensive unit, as you mentioned, could see them fare a little better than we've seen other teams so far this season.
Adam, I'll come to you next. We've talked a lot about that unique, I guess, style of attack, the high press, the high tempo, intense football that West Brom play. But I guess paying tribute to their backline is important as well. There's a lot of talk about Dara O'Shea, Darnell Furlong, but how impressed have you been with Carl Bartley this season? Is he someone that you think's flown under the radar a bit?
I think he has. I mean, with Dara O'Shea out, which was, of course, a massive, concern for them and a massive blow for them, Bartley has stepped up, and it's not just what he brings on the football pitch, which is, not just defensive solidity at the back, but he also brings that kind of attacking kind of intent going forward, that threat from set pieces, which will be, really important with Darnell Furlong and his long throws. We all know about them, as will Sheffield United. I think they're still having nightmares about them. But yeah, a good leader as well off the pitch. I think that's exactly what they need. In this situation, obviously, they've got Jake Livermore and Alex Mowat in there, former Barnsley captain and current, West Brom captain, which is important. But you can never have too many leaders in there. And Carl Bartley will be fantastic at the back, obviously help Ajayi. And, if Brian starts tonight, then maybe he can help him kind of settle in there as well. And he's still only 30 as well. And I think that's, it's kind of surprising. I thought he was older, but he's not. And he's kind of still in the peak of his career and, has at least a couple of more years, I think, kind of left to give to West Brom. But yeah, I've been impressed with him, and I don't think he kind of receives the plaudits that he deserves. So I'm glad that we're talking about him now.
Absolutely. And how do you see this game going tonight then, Adam? What's your score prediction?
This is a really hard one to get off with. You haven't given me an easy one. I think it's going to be 2-1 I reckon it's going to be 2-1 Stoke, actually, because they've got to lose at some point, West Brom, and I think tonight might be the time that they finally lose.
Absolutely. And what about you, Marcus?
I'm going 1-1. I think Stoke might be a little hamstrung by losing Romain Sawyers. Obviously can't play against his parent club. So Sam Clucas might come in there. That's a pretty good like-for-like change in terms of depth in the Championship. But I think, yes, it's very evenly matched. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Brilliant. We'll move on to our next game then. We shift to the Welsh capital then, where Cardiff host Reading. There's a lot of pressure on Mick McCarthy after a really torrid run of form for the Bluebirds. Marcus, is this make or break for Mick McCarthy? And what can he do you think, to try and turn the tide?
I wouldn't go that far, to be honest. I think the way the board slapped a long-term contract on him after quite a small run after he took over last season, a lot of fine margins were falling in their favour, scoring a lot of set pieces. The board were very quick to act on extending his contract from beyond just what was meant to be ending last summer, just gone, to give him, I think it was an extra 3-year deal, or at least a 2-year deal. So I think they might be a little bit more hesitant than maybe the supporters will be. The football's been turgid lately. Obviously, they've conceded 9 goals in their last 2 games. It's really not pretty reading on the score sheet. But I think they might be able to turn it around. I don't think their processes, particularly in attack, have been particularly as bad as the results suggest. So I think there are reasons to be cheerful. I'm not going to say they're going to turn it around and get in the top 6, but I don't think they're going to continue sliding towards the relegation zone. I think McCarthy, for all his flaws, is a good man manager, a good motivator, and he'll be able to work it out. He's got the experience. So I do think they can turn it around on Saturday.
Adam, coming to you, you're someone that's watched a lot of Reading. You sort of got the inside track on the Royals, as it were. I guess a disappointing defeat in midweek to Derby, but the current form before that sort of suggests that the Royals should be safe, you'd think, even if that points deduction does come in, as some people are expecting.
I think it depends on kind of the amount of points that are deducted. I think also the psychological effect that it will have as well, because I honestly think if Sheffield Wednesday, if they didn't receive that 12-point deduction at the start of the season before it being reduced to 6, I think they may have survived. I think it was a huge psychological blow to have. Whereas with Reading, our international, our form since the international break has been very good. I know that they conceded late against QPR, and that could have been detrimental to Veljko Paunovic, but no, they responded very well to that, and I don't think they received enough plaudits for responding so well to that, and recorded some good wins. I mean, the Fulham win was outstanding, and but yeah, I think hopefully they'll be safe, but we shall see on that one. I think the recent form has helped us with getting 9 points on the board, 3 consecutive wins, but we'll soon see what happens with them. They had a bit of a decline in the second half of the season, which is a source of concern, I think, for Reading fans, that it might happen again, because we won, I think it was, when unbeaten in our last first 8 games of the 2020-21 season, and obviously didn't get off to a good start this season, but hopefully we don't decline like we did at the last campaign, because that would really spell trouble then. But it's a bit of a concern as well that Reading seem to be a bit of a confidence team. If we're winning, then we seem to be doing all right and we seem to go on a bit of a run, but when we're losing, we kind of struggle to get out of that rut. So I think it will be an important test really on Saturday afternoon to see how they respond to that, because I don't think many Reading fans will be too mad with the result in midweek, because Derby are a decent side, and the second half performance wasn't great, but the first half was okay. But it'll be about the reaction now. I think that many Reading fans will judge that one on and make a judgment call.
Absolutely, and just quickly then, Adam, on the Royals, how well would you say that those Premier League loanees and Alan Halilovic, sort of quite blockbuster arrivals really late in the window, how well have they settled in, and do you think they could play a role in sort of helping Reading get the better of Cardiff tonight?
Yeah, I was wrong about Danny Drinkwater. I was sceptical about what mindset he would be in, kind of dropping down to the Championship after winning the title, Premier League title 5 or 6 seasons ago. So I was very sceptical about the mindset that he'd be in. I wasn't exactly, I didn't have any doubts about the ability that he had, and if he was on top of his form, he could be a game changer. But he's come in and his mindset's been fantastic. He's been really composed in the middle of the park, and I think that's going to be really important for our attacks going forward, kind of building out from the back, because some midfielders I think would panic, but he's shown exactly why he's been competing at the top level for the last however many kind of years. So I've been really impressed with him. It's good to have an actual left back at left back. I think it makes all the difference. I'm not sure if Rahman is exactly fully up to speed yet. I mean, he looks a little bit kind of off the pace slightly, but that's the only real criticism that I have of him, because I think he's been fine really. He's been solid enough, and I think he'll only get better. So I'm excited to see him in action as well. Deli Bashiru, I said I think it's the 2 shows ago now that I was on, that I think he could be one of the signings of the season. Scored twice against Peterborough, and if it wasn't for his ACL injury that he picked up actually against Reading for Watford, I think it was near the start of last season, then I think he would have done quite well for Watford. But he has a point to prove this season because of that, and I think that he'll go on and do reasonably well, if not absolutely fantastically. Moving on to Halilovic, I mean, I'm really impressed with him, especially on Wednesday. I mean, a lot of people may not have rated his performance that much because he kind of wasted opportunities, but he wasn't scared to get on the ball, even though he wasted those opportunities. I do think we need something different going down the wing. So we've got Ajaria and Halilovic, which are kind of similar. We haven't had someone who can run at a championship fullback and scare them really with pace since, I think, Mo Barrow. So we need a different option in there, but I've been impressed with Halilovic, and on a free transfer, he's been absolutely fantastic. And I'm guessing that Scott Dan will be another good addition too.
Absolutely, some positives there in terms of the arrivals. What's your score prediction for tomorrow then?
I'm going to go with 1-1. I think Reading will probably get back on track, but Cardiff will need a reaction after 2 heavy defeats. So I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw on this one.
Yeah, and then what about you, Marcus?
I think Mick McCarthy will do anything to stop the rot and stop them conceding so many goals. I think he'd be content watching a bore draw. But I just think with Ryan Giles coming back into the side, Cardiff might have a little bit more going forward. Reading haven't been the most watertight at the back this season. So sorry, Adam, I'm going for a 1-0 win for the Bluebirds, get them pointing back in the right direction.
Brilliant. Well, that's 2 of our 4 championship games that we've gone through so far. But I just want to remind you to sort of send your comments in if you've got any questions for any of us, or just to let us know what your prediction for any of this weekend's games are. To Birmingham next. They host Nottingham Forest on Saturday. Adam, come to you first. Forest probably the favourites in this one, given the current form, and that they've got that new manager bounce. But how impressed have you been in sort of Cooper's short tenure so far?
I think he did okay on his first match against Millwall, and I think he was did reasonably well. Didn't lose it. That's the most important thing, that he didn't lose his first game, especially after Stephen Reid got them a 3-1 victory against Huddersfield. So that was the most important thing, kind of stabilising them at home after some pretty bad home performances, especially against Middlesbrough, which turned out to be the straw that broke the camel's back in a way with Chris Hughton. But I think his most impressive decision, he spoke about it after the match against Barnsley, was putting Lewis Grabban on. Completely changed the game. I think it was a little over a minute later that he kind of played Brennan Johnson through, led to the equaliser, and then got on the score sheet himself late on with a third goal. And although it was a tap in, you have to be in the right position to be there. And he anticipated that Mighton was going to get through all those defenders and slot the ball across for him to convert. So I've been really impressed actually with that decision. I think that one has stood out so far. I don't think he received enough plaudits really at Swansea. I think, maybe I'm kind of, not too much informed because I haven't been watching Swansea as much as Swansea City supporters have, obviously. But he seemed to do a decent job. Obviously, Graham Potter didn't manage to lead them to the playoffs, but Cooper did on 2 separate occasions, once in remarkable fashion on the final day of the 2019-20 season, and then going on and securing a much more comfortable playoff position. And some people say that's because of Ayew, but you can only beat what's in front of you, and you can only use the players that are in front of you as well. So yeah, he's done really well, and obviously coped with some high profile sales as well. So I think he'll do quite a good job at Nottingham Forest. I think it's a better fit than Chris Hughton is. I think Hughton strikes me as a manager where he kind of wants to control the recruitment, but I think Cooper is more adaptable, and I think it's going to be a good fit kind of between the two. Long term, I'm not 100% sure where it will go, but short term, I think it will be a real positive, his appointment, and I think they'll only climb up the table now, and the system suits them a lot better, and you can tell.
Absolutely, from one manager then who's still in the midst of that sort of early tenure positivity to one who's, I guess, early luck seems to have run out a bit in Lebo. Yeah, it's 1 win in 7 now for the Blues. Marcus, were they overachieving before? Are they underachieving now, or have they sort of found their middle in that sort of mid-table?
I think a bit of both. I wasn't getting carried away at the start of the season when they were winning all these matches, but I'm also not getting carried away now. I'm not at all concerned that the Birmingham won't be able to stop the rot and get back on top. I think they are a little bit reliant on Tahith Chong for some creative imagination, a spark in attacking areas. We've seen Bowyer play Jutkovic and Troy Deeney up front in a pair this season, which is not very imaginative, if you ask me. I think you definitely need a bit of balance in there with Scott Hogan or another player. So I err on the side that they are more finding their feet at this level. Yeah, I think about a mid-table side is right for them. They might flirt with the top 6 at points this season, but I can't really expect them to sustain it. I'm not reading too much into, they got hammered at Peterborough, but I think the performance was a little bit better than the result suggested there. So I'm not too concerned about the Blues. No, I think they're finding their way. But onto Nottingham Forest, I think Steve Cooper, although they came from behind at Barnsley, and that will be another feather in his cap for getting his first win, I do see the caveat being that it was only Barnsley. They're on a terrible run at the moment. They're performing like one of the worst teams in the division. So I expected Forest to get that win. So yeah, I think Birmingham have got a good chance here.
Absolutely. What's your score prediction then, Marcus?
I'm going 1-1. I kind of want to say I'm going to predict Birmingham to win, but I just think that bit of momentum and newfound confidence in the Forest players might be able to help them take something from St Andrews.
And what about you, Adam?
I'm going to go with a 2-0 Forest win. I think the bounce will continue.
Brilliant. We move then to the final championship game we'll be focusing on this week, and it's another clash between sort of 2 big hitters in the division, really, with Bournemouth hosting Sheffield United in the South Coast. Marcus, I'll come to you first. Bournemouth, a 0-0 draw against Peterborough, perhaps not ideal in midweek, but another clean sheet. They've conceded the fewest goals in the division. Do you think their defence and the quality of it sort of slightly gets overlooked given the exciting players that Scott Parker's got going forward?
No, to be honest, I think they're running a bit hot defensively. I think they've beaten Leyton and QPR at home quite recently 2-1 in matches where they conceded a lot of chances and the scoreline could have been very different. I'm very far from being convinced about Mark Travers as a goalkeeper at championship level and even a promotion pushing side in the championship. I think he could end up making some mistakes that cost them points this season. He nearly did with Elijah Adebayo nipping in last weekend. So I am concerned for them at home against Sheffield United. I think it'll be a tough one, and United will enjoy sort of coming in as outsiders despite being the newly relegated team. Obviously they've brought in some great experience with Gary Cahill. Jordan Zamura's got a lot of praise from left back, but you do wonder what happens when he's left up attacking, joining in with Jayden Anthony down that left side. Are they going to be susceptible on the counter attack with the likes of Iliman and Dye and Morgan Gibbs-White for the Blaze? So I think this is an opportunity for Slavisa Jukanovic's men to take a surprise win.
Absolutely. And Adam, coming to you then on the Blades, you've seen a sort of clear improvement from then as well since the international break, bar that sort of Borough slip up in midweek. But is this where the real test of exactly where Slavisa Jukanovic's Blades are at the moment against taking on another real promotion contender?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'll be the ideal test. I think Jokanovic would have probably wanted an easier home game, to be honest with you, after a defeat against Middlesbrough, just to stabilise themselves a little bit. But yeah, with these signings in now, I mean, Conor Hourihane and Morgan Gibbs-White, they've got a better idea now of kind of where they will be at the end of the season. I think we're getting a better idea as well, because it's all right, him saying that, he said at the start of his tenure that this is the best squad that he'd worked with, but they needed a mentality change after such a poor season last term, not winning any of their first 17 matches in the Premier League. So, I mean, the new signings give us a better idea now of where they're at, and this is obviously the ideal test against, an AFC Bournemouth side, which are, quite good, but they're not, they've got imperfections, and they'll be hoping to kind of exploit them. So I think Sheffield United fans will be hoping at least a draw. They weren't expecting to be losing this one, especially with the likes of Hourihane and Gibbs-White in there. So yeah, I think it's a good test to see where they're at. And hopefully, for them, they can kind of rise up to the challenge and recover, because there'll be no better confidence boost now than to get a win at the Vitality Stadium against a very good side.
Absolutely. And Adam, which way do you see this going? What's your score prediction?
I'm going to go with maybe a surprise. I'm going to go with a 2-1 win to Sheffield United.
Brilliant. And Marcus, what about you? Do you see the Cherries losing their sort of unbeaten championship record, or do you fancy them to get past Sheffield United?
No, I do. I agree with Adam. 2-1 Blades for me. It would be a statement win, but I think they've got the players to pull it off.
Brilliant. Well, those are all the sort of championship games that we'll be previewing today. So just a reminder to sort of send your comments in. We want any questions, any predictions you might have as we move on to League One. We start then at Hillsborough, Sheffield Wednesday hosting Oxford in what looks to be a really sort of exciting and enthralling tie. Adam, I'll come to you first. Do you think that win at Wigan in midweek against a team that I think were unbeaten at home in League One and were the league leaders at the time, can that be a springboard for Wednesday to kick on? And do you think, the likes of Patterson and Gregory that really impressed linking up, can they fire Wednesday to promotion this season? Do you think that's the front two that really Darren Moore should be going with?
It's going to be a tough test, for sure. I mean, you've got the likes of Wigan that they face, you've got Sunderland, and you've got Ipswich that are no doubt going to come up the table at some point after their midweek win. So it's going to be a massive test for them to get promotion. And I'm not overly convinced that they're going to get it, despite, I'm impressed with Barry Bannon. I think he's too good to be in League One. I'm impressed with Darren Moore. No one's had a bad word to say about him at all. And I think he'll get it right with the players. So that gives him a little bit of a chance of promotion. But no, it's so competitive up there. And especially in League One on paper, both on paper and, how it's going at the moment. It's going to be very competitive. So I'm not 100% sure on their promotion. What I would say, though, is that Wigan win was absolutely huge and will be a huge confidence booster. It's the kind of victory that kind of turns around a season. They had, a reasonably good start, but obviously, they've stuttered since, and it felt like they needed that win. I think that was what was missing. So I think they'll have a decent season. I think, they'll be in the top half, but whether they can kind of get themselves in the automatic promotion mix, it kind of remains to be seen. So yeah, I'm kind of sceptical on that one, but I think Bailey Peacock-Farrell will be important as well. I think he's the type of player who could get player of the season just by keeping them in games and making sure that they making sure he's making match winning saves and that sort of thing. So yeah, I think we'll see what happens with them, to be honest.
Absolutely. Marcus, coming to you then, I'll sort of ask your thoughts on Oxford and Carl Robinson's team in a minute. But first, Darren Moore, he brought in quite a lot of attacking talent, Canberry, Berahino, and he's still got sort of Josh Windass to come back. But that Lee Gregory, Callum Patterson duo seemed to really click in midweek. Do you think that we're likely to see them start again against Oxford? And do you think they can really hurt that Oxford backline?
I don't see why not. I think Callum Patterson getting the goal at Wigan was crucial. He's a horrible player to play against. I'm surprised he hasn't been utilised as much so far this season. He really is, really horrible to play against. As I mentioned, he's so clever. He's not easy on the eye. He's not prolific, but he does the dirty side of the game really well. Dangerous from set pieces, and particularly in a front pair, as you mentioned with Lee Gregory. I think it could go under the radar maybe how big of an effect Callum Paterson can have on an opposition's back line that allows those spaces to open up for the likes of Lee Gregory. So yeah, I think to have Callum Paterson in their ranks, despite bringing all these players in the summer, is a huge boost. Obviously, getting the goal last week, he should be full of confidence. And yeah, just his link-up play. He's such a good aerial threat. I think at League One level, he could be a real asset to Sheffield Wednesday and the promotion push that they hope to build in the coming weeks. He obviously proved it at Cardiff, even scored a few goals in the Premier League. I think his experience and know-how is second to none at this level. So yeah, Paterson, it could be a real threat in this match.
And switching to Oxford then, we've had so much talk about some of the real heavy hitters in League One. They perhaps fly under the radar a bit. They've been sort of quietly going about their business just outside the top six at the moment. What issues do you see that them sort of causing Wednesday? And are they a team that you really expect to be in and around the playoffs come May?
Definitely. I think it'll be close to the wire, but I definitely think Oxford United should be in and around it. Maybe one of the reasons that we think they are quietly going about their business is because they have a nice bit of consistency and continuity at the Kassam. Carl Robinson's been there for a period of time now. Still got Cameron Brannigan, Matt Henry. These key players are staying at the club and continuing to build push after push. You think at one point in the future it will be their year if they can continue what they're doing. In with Sheffield Wednesday, obviously Adam said he expects them to finish in the top half and maybe not the top six. That it's a direct rival, so it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against them. Obviously, I mentioned Cameron Brannigan, one of the most cultured midfielders in the third tier from the Liverpool Academy. He's a player that's really come of age in the last few years and could dictate the game if Sheffield Wednesday give him too much time on the ball.
Brilliant. And what's your score prediction then, Marcus?
I'm going 1-1, sitting on the fence a little bit. I like both sides. I just think Wednesday are pretty solid at the back. So I think they might have to react to Oxford's attacks here. But Callum Paterson, yeah, I'm pretty hot on him at the moment. The danger man.
And what about you, Adam?
1-0 Sheffield Wednesday, I think. I think I'm going to go with that one. I don't think there'll be many goals in it, to be honest.
Brilliant. We'll shift to a game between two more teams that will want to be pushing for that top six. Sunderland travel down to the south coast to take on Portsmouth on the back of a sort of huge 5-0 win against Cheltenham in midweek. Marcus, a tough run for the hosts at the moment, but they're still only 5 points off the playoffs. It could just be that a big game like this is just what Danny Cowley needs to sort of rile his side up. Could a result here kickstart their season?
Yeah, I definitely think this sort of stuttering starts the season has been more of a transition period than anything concerning for Pompey fans. A lot of new players, a lot of new ideas for Danny Cowley to try and get across in the infancy of the campaign. I also think, as you mentioned, that it could suit them playing a better side. There's less pressure on them in front of their home crowd, less pressure to get the points that are going to fire them up the table just because of how good Sunderland have been so far this season. We've seen Lee Johnson go through peaks and troughs in his time at Bristol City, and Sunderland at points last season falling away from the automatic promotion race towards the end of the campaign. It's yet to be seen if that's going to happen again this year, but I think Portsmouth, as sort of a familiar rival in and around the League One playoffs in recent years, it should be a cracking game. This Portsmouth were obviously lost in midweek against Burton, but their 2-2 draw at Charlton last Saturday, they were probably a little unfortunate to end up only coming away from the point with a point. John Marquis missed some great chances in that match, and things appear to start to be clicking for Danny Cowley with that front three of Marcus Harness, Ronan Curtis, and John Marquis. So it's going to be a really interesting game. This is probably the headline fixture in League One for me. So yeah, I do think it suits Portsmouth that they're playing such a good side in Sunderland, and I think they'll rise to the occasion.
Absolutely, yeah. As you said, these two have seen a lot of each other in recent years. I think it's 9 times they've played each other since 2018. Adam, Sunderland were outstanding against Cheltenham. Do you think we saw a glimpse that they've really got the firepower this season to sort of blow the rest of League One away?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've got some really good ingredients in there. I'm thinking, I thought that Charlie White was going to be a massive blow to them, kind of him leaving in the summer for, not just, any ordinary team, but a League One rival. I thought it was going to be a massive blow. But Ross Stewart, I have to say, he's stepped up to the plate, done very well. Broadhead also looks quite good, but I'm not sure about him with an injury at the moment. So that could be a little bit of a blow up top. Maybe, they could, obviously they've got, another signing as well, to Jaku as well. And, McGeady as well, who led the assist tally last year. I think he only started playing regularly under Lee Johnson in December, and has led the and got the most assists in the league last season. So it just goes to show how creative he is. With him, it's you don't even notice his age really, because he's so effective on the ball. I think Lyndon Gooch will be another good player as well. Winchester can kind of chip in with the odd goal as well. So not only does Winchester do that as well, but he also allows Luke O'Nien to kind of play in the middle, which is kind of Lee Johnson's kind of position that he wants to kind of play O'Nien in. So he's been so valuable to the club, and I can only commend Winchester for playing his part in it, because I think he'll be a little bit of an unsung hero really, with Stewart up there and McGeady. But I think he'll play a big part, and fair play to him for his fantastic start to the campaign.
Absolutely, very versatile, sort of slotting in at right back and flying under the radar. And what's your prediction for this one then, Adam?
I'm going to have to go with a very narrow 2-1 win to Sunderland.
And what about you, Marcus?
I think it'll be a cracking atmosphere at Fratton Park, and the newly restored home advantage can carry Pompey to a result. A much needed one at that. I'm going 2-2.
2-2. You were obviously watching the EFL betting show this morning, and hopefully for everyone that followed my wildcard punt, 2-2 is exactly what it is. And we'll move now to our League 2 game. We were talking about League 1 heavyweights there, and it's two of the top teams in League 2 facing each other as Port Vale host Leyton Orient. Marcus, I'll come to you. One of the best defences in the league in terms of Port Vale this season against one of the highest scorers in Leyton Orient. Which way is this one going to go?
I'm feeling really good about Port Vale at the moment. 3 wins on the bounce. A while before that, they went to Forest Green, who had won all their matches at that point in the season and won 2-0. I think Port Vale were really producing what will be an automatic promotion push. They sort of flattered to deceive a bit last season, but now they've really got it together under Darryl Clark. I know Orient have started brilliantly, but I think they are too reliant on that front three. I feel like they need Theo Archibald to create chances from himself. Aaron Drinnan's been scoring some ridiculous goals, really, in terms of how they've come about and the style of them. So I think if Vale can deal with the front three, as you mentioned, how good the defence has been, they'll have the key to get the result. And 3 wins on the bounce, they should be full of confidence. Orient struggled a bit to a 0-0 draw at home to Mansfield last weekend. Wasn't too convincing. So I think Vale are favourites here.
Adam, Port Vale have struggled at home a bit, and they now sort of welcome an Orient side that, as Marcus said, it struggled against Mansfield, but overall have got to be pretty high in confidence with that front three. Do you think with playing at home where they have had those struggles could be a factor for Port Vale here?
I mean, it's a strange one with Port Vale, because their defence has been okay at home, really. I mean, obviously they conceded 3, the other week, but I just think that their defence hasn't been too bad from home, but they haven't scored that much either. So I think they've been their own worst enemy. I think they need to get themselves more on the score sheet at home if they're kind of to have any chance of kind of staying kind of where they are. So I think, I think they're kind of their own worst enemy kind of in that aspect. And, it's looking kind of good for Leyton Orient as well, because they haven't just got one main goal scorer. They've got, quite a few there, Archibald, as you were saying, and Drinnan as well, and Smith. So, yeah, it's going to be a very tight affair. Probably the hardest one to predict actually out of every single game kind of in this preview. And that's kind of, that's saying something, considering, how close some of these games are going to be. So yeah, it's a very hard one to predict. And we'll soon see whether Leyton Orient kind of and their attacking threat kind of pay dividends for that, up against kind of a defence, a Port Vale defence at home, which hasn't been too bad.
unfortunately, Adam, I am going to ask you to predict it. What's your score prediction?
I think I'm going to get splinters again, and I think I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw.
And what about you, Marcus?
I feel confident in Port Vale. I think along with Forest Green, they're probably the best two teams in League Two so far. I'm going 2-1 Vale.
Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you both, Marcus and Adam. Thank you very much. And thanks everyone for watching. And just want to finish by just reminding everyone, if they can, to subscribe to the Football League World TV YouTube channel and just to get out there and enjoy the weekend's EFL football.